So welcome to the start of a new reading vlog. Full disclosure, I've already filmed the reading vlog, but I hadn't introed it yet, so I'm introing it here, and then I will also outro it, so you'll see this outfit again. I am very fortunate to be part of the ALC program for Libro FM. If you don't know, ALC stands for Advanced Listener Copy, so essentially like an advanced reader copy, but the audiobook version. I get ALCs pretty much every month. There's very few months where I don't pick anything just because there's always something that sounds a little bit intriguing or something that's like already on my TBR, on my radar. But I'm not always the best at actually listening to them before they come out or in the month that I get them. And so this year, one of my like goals that I have just kind of got on the back of my mind, it's not something that's like officially a goal, but something that I want to do is actually listen to the ALCs that I get each month. And if I don't do that, then I need to stop getting so many, honestly, because I have a huge backlog of books on Libro FM. And I thought maybe it would be fun to do a little vlog every month of me listening to the ALCs and reviewing them, especially if they come out in that month or the next month. Then you get a pretty good idea of whether it's something you might want to pick up, especially on audio. But I only picked one ALC in January, and that was Half His Age by Jennette McCURDY. And so I thought a one book vlog would be kind of boring, especially because it's an audiobook, so you're not going to actually physically see me holding a book or anything. It's just going to be a pretty straightforward read, review situation. And then I remembered that I, a few years ago, was lucky enough to get an ALC of her first book, her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died. That came out in 2022. And I hadn't yet read it. So I thought, perfect. I'll do a little Jennette McCURDY combo reading vlog and listen to I'm Glad My Mom Died and then also Half His Age, which comes out on January 20th. So that's what this video is. I'm Glad My Mom Died is a memoir about Jennette McCURDY's very complicated relationship with her mother and the kind of reconciliation that she has done with that relationship since her mom has passed. Half His Age is Jennette McCURDY's fiction debut. It's about a high school student who gets really infatuated with her creative writing teacher, and an interesting relationship forms from there. Enjoy the experience of watching me listen to both of these books, and then we'll come back and outro. Baby girl and I are headed over to my mom's to eat lunch, and I thought I'd do a quick check-in because I have some updates. I started listening to the audiobook for I'm Glad My Mom Died last night, and I made it 7% in. I'm on chapter 5. I did watch iCarly when I was growing up, but I was just on this side of too old for it, so it wasn't something that I watched religiously, but if it was on and there was nothing else to watch, then I would put it on. The book is broken up into, I believe, like before and after, and so I'm in the before section right now, and she's just talking about so far like when she first got into acting and how she just so desperately wanted to make her mom happy, and everything she did was to make her mom happy. I mean, I obviously can see that the book is going to go in a direction where she realizes that her mom's behavior is incredibly toxic and she doesn't necessarily have Jennette's best interest at heart. As a person who is also relatively newly a mother, I'm coming at it, I guess, from an interesting perspective of how could a mother treat their child this way or do these things to their child. But I'm not really far enough in yet to say like too much, just that I have a pretty good foundation for where the book is going to go and what we're going to learn from Jennette as she continues to have these revelations about her relationship with her mom, and I'm interested to see where the rest of the book goes. Are you laughing? I will update you again when I have more to say, but so far I'm really interested. I think that Jennette McCURDY has a really good voice for writing. Her nonfiction feels novel-esque almost. It feels like you're reading a novel, the way that she's writing the book, the way that it's very conversational, there's dialogue. I think that writing is going to lend itself really well to a successful fiction debut. I also honestly think that the nonfiction is also going to give a lot of good context to the story that she wrote in a fiction capacity. So I'm very intrigued to keep going with this, and I'm glad that I'm finally reading it after it sitting on my Libro FM TBR for many years. Hello, this angle sucks. I've got you propped up in my kitchen cabinet, which is just slightly too tall for eye level, which I'm not liking, but every other angle that I'm trying right now, I'm also not liking. So we're gonna go with it. I'm making myself and the baby some breakfast right now, and so I thought I would talk a little bit more about I'm Glad My Mom Died. I'm about 46% of the way through, so getting close to halfway. I'd really like to finish it today, but I have some other things I really need to get done today. I'm still in the before section, and I'm really enjoying this book. It's very sad. It starts when Jeannette is like 6 years old, and she feels a lot of responsibility for her mother because she's her mother's favorite child. Her mom has basically pinned all of her own hopes and dreams on her child, and doesn't have any like care in the world about whether or not it's what her child wants. Obviously, she's done a lot of reflecting. A lot of what she's writing about in this book is, I'm sure, coming from years of hindsight and therapy and just being able to like kind of unpack the trauma that her mom is causing. It's just so sad to think that like a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old child felt the burden of her mother's happiness, and so she continued to do something that she didn't want to do, which was acting, to make her mom happy and to keep the peace. It's a hard read because I just feel so bad. I just like want to go back in time and give her a hug and tell her that this isn't how mothers treat their children, and obviously as she's an adult now, she understands that. But it's just quite interesting to just read about all of the trauma that she was experiencing while being such a public figure. Like, iCarly was a huge show, and everybody knew who Jennette McCurdy was. Everybody knew who Sam was. And so she's got the burden of fame on her, which she never wanted. She's got the burden of her mother's expectations on her. And she's dealing with a lot of behind the scenes trauma that the public doesn't know about. In the chapter that I read right before I fell asleep last night, she talked about how she's 16 years old and her mom still insists on showering her. Like, she's not allowed to shower on her own and wash her own body and fix her own hair. I just feel so frustrated past her, because I'm like, I think I talked about this in my clip yesterday, but like, as a mother, I just can't imagine putting my child through that. It's obvious that she's doing it from a place of selfishness and from narcissism and her own like wanting. Yeah, I know, I'm fixing your breakfast right now, honey. And from her desire for her child to fulfill a dream that she never got to fulfill herself. But it's just so sad. I just feel so sad for her. And I'm sure as the book goes on, and probably in the after section, she will more closely examine her own thoughts, feelings, and emotions surrounding the treatment that she gets from her mother. I don't know that it's going to be discussed in the book because I'm pretty sure this book came out before the iCarly reboot that happened a couple of years ago. But I remember at the time that she chose not to return. Reliving that experience probably would have brought up a lot of trauma that she was still sort of dealing with and unpacking. And so I just have a lot of respect for her as I read the book more and more and read more and more about what's happened to her. Anyway, I'm gonna try to finish it today, but like I said, I have a bunch of things that I need to do. And also, People We Meet on Vacation, the movie came out today, and so I'm literally about to make myself breakfast and then I'm going to go watch it because I'm so excited. Here's my child's breakfast. We've got strawberries, cuties, egg, and cheese. She will probably eat most of this. I'm gonna have oatmeal and coffee. I probably won't check in again with this book until I'm done, unless I have something major to say in a different section. But I really like the writing. It's making me so excited to read her fiction book because I feel like her tone of writing will lend itself really well to fiction as well. So I think this is gonna be a really successful reading vlog, hopefully, fingers crossed. And next time I see you, I will be coming at you from a much better angle. Good morning, happy Sunday. I just finished I'm Glad My Mom Died. I didn't do any updates when I was reading the after section just because it was a much shorter section of the book, and so I wanted to just finish it off and talk to you about everything all at once. The second half of the book was much harder to read than the first because Jeannette details in great detail the way that she was coping in very, very unhealthy ways. There was a lot of descriptions about the nights that she would drink a lot of alcohol. There were very detailed descriptions of her bulimia. It was really hard to read. As someone who's not really triggered by a lot of things, it was hard to read. So if you have any triggers surrounding eating disorders, death of a family member, alcoholism, seriously, look into it before you pick this book up because it's not an easy read, that's for sure. I think that the second half maybe was a bit weaker than the first half just because the chapters were a lot snappier. It was a lot of the same thing because her life just got into this repetitive state where she was just binging and purging and binging and purging and drinking, and she had a very codependent sort of toxic relationship that she talks about quite a bit. It just felt like that section was maybe a little bit less developed. Maybe there was a little bit less reflection in that part of her life because she'd had much more time to reflect on her relationship with her mom. It's clear that she's done a lot of work to overcome the trauma and abuse that she experienced through her mom. She spent some time in the second half talking about how she feels so guilty about the way that she isn't doing the things that her mom would have wanted her to do, like continuing to act and her music career and things like that. She does spend a lot of time trying to reconcile like what she wants from her life with the things that her mom wanted for her. It's a heavy book. It's heavy and it's sad, and I'm really glad that I finally read it. Like I said, I didn't really watch a lot of iCarly. Like I was just past sort of the age prime of that show, but I obviously was aware of it and I did watch it some. I just wasn't like religiously watching it. I think this is a really honest portrayal of the life of a child actor. I know that the experiences that she experienced as a child actor are not singular to her. Obviously we know so many stories of child actors going through intense trauma, Britney Spears, Amanda Bynes, etc. So we know that this is not a unique experience in Hollywood, but I feel like this is probably one of the most honest portrayals of that experience. Once we get to the end of the book and she's a few years past her eating disorder and past her alcoholism and everything, that she is in a much better place now, and stepping away from the spotlight was the right move for her. I'm glad I read it. It's been on my audio TBR for so long that I was afraid I was never going to get around to it, and I'm glad that Half His Age coming out has sort of pushed me to finally get to I'm Glad My Mom Died. I would recommend it, especially if you are a fan of Jennette McCurdy or of iCarly or whatever. It would be a really, I think, eye-opening experience to read this book. But like I said, just look at trigger warnings because it's not a sunshine and rainbows kind of book. It is heavy and sad and incredibly triggering for anybody that's experienced the things that she's experienced. Hello, happy Monday. I just got finished filming my 2026 goals video, which will be the video that's up before this one, right before this one. So I'll leave a link to that if you want to go check it out. I did want to tell you that I read the entirety of Half His Age without updating you. I didn't mean to, I truly didn't mean to, but it was a really short audiobook. It was, I think it was four hours, almost 5, like 4 hours and 54 minutes. And I listened to it at 1.7 times speed. So I finished it in like 2.5 hours basically. I went grocery shopping today and I was at the store for so long. And I finished the majority of it while I was at the store, and then also while I was at home unloading and putting all the groceries away. This is Jennette McCurdy's debut novel, and it follows a high school senior named Waldo who becomes incredibly infatuated with her creative writing teacher. His name is Mr. Corgi, and for some reason she just gets really fixated on him, and she lets this sort of infatuation essentially take over her life, and things are a bit crazy from there. It is disgusting. I will tell you that. This is not a book that I would go into without looking at trigger warnings, first of all, because it does feature an inappropriate relationship between a student and a teacher. When they get together, like when they first kiss, like the first time they kiss, she is 17 and he is 40. So there's quite the age gap. She's half his age, clearly the title of the book. It is an incredibly nasty book. It's gritty. The writing is spectacular. I loved the audiobook because Jennette McCurdy narrates it herself. It is funny, but also just like so cringe. The whole book just made me do this the whole time. I just was so tense from being grossed out. It went in a lot of directions that I didn't quite anticipate. I just think for a story like this, it's been done before. I don't know that this book added anything new to this conversation. I like that the chapters are really short, so if I was reading it physically, like with my eyes, I probably would have gotten through it just as quickly as reading it with my ears, because it was really snappy and I kept wanting to read because of the way that the chapters are written and the way they ended. It was just, it kept me going. But I just don't know that there was anything like really nuanced about the subject matter. I will also say that there were some pretty clear influences from her own personal life. There were a couple of things that she talked about happening to her in I'm Glad My Mom Died that she then used similar situations for scenes in Half His Age. One that I specifically remember in Half His Age is that the main character is at prom and she gets upset, and so she goes into the bathroom to cry, but there's no toilet paper, so she uses a toilet seat cover. I specifically remember Jennette McCurdy also talking about that happening at like an award show or something. She went to go to the bathroom to cry or to wipe her mouth or something, and there was no toilet paper. So it's like little things like that. The main crux of I'm Glad My Mom Died is her unhealthy addictions to certain behaviors. Like, she talks a lot about being bulimic and needing to purge and binge and purge and binge and all of that. And while it's not exactly an eating disorder in half his age, it is like this addictive cycle where she's getting really obsessed with her teacher. And I don't know, it's just, there's some really interesting juxtaposition there where it's not completely a parallel to her real life and this fiction that she's written, but there's enough inspiration. But it did not feel self-inserty at all. I did not feel like Jennette McCurdy was writing a book about Jennette McCurdy in a fictionalized sense. I felt like she was writing a book about a girl who's trying to figure her life out and gets kind of into this unhealthy dynamic with this man. Also, the period scene will haunt me. I'm glad I started my year this way because I really do want to prioritize getting to the ALCs that I get through Libra FM this year. So it was nice to like get to this one before the book's even out. I'm gonna stew on it for a couple days and then I'll probably come back and do like a final wrap up of all of my feelings about both of these books and sort of where I've landed on my final reviews of them. So it's been about 24 hours since I finished Half His Age, and I've done quite a bit of reflecting on my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on that book and come to the conclusion that I actually really didn't like it that much and also that I would absolutely not recommend it. It is well written and I did like the audiobook because Jennette McCurdy narrates it herself and she really gives kind of a good voice and a good life to the story. But this book was rough, and sitting with it for 24 hours and then coming back and reflecting on it, there's just nothing like nuanced or exciting about the book that adds anything to this conversation. I will say that it does a really good job of not romanticizing an age gap relationship because that sometimes can be the situation in books like this, but it also doesn't really condemn it either. It just feels very like normalized almost, and I feel like that could be detrimental to any young person picking this book up. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone under the age of 18. Don't read it if your frontal lobe is not fully developed because it's something. I do stand by the fact that Jennette McCurdy is a fantastic author. She has a very clear voice, and I will continue to pick up the books that she puts out in the future because I think that she has a lot of talent, and I think that the writing space is exactly where she needs to be, and I think she knows that. Let me know down in the comments if you've read either of these books and what you thought about them. I know Half His Age isn't out yet, but if you're also in the ALC program, you might have picked it up. Let me know after my review and reflection, is it something you're still interested in reading, or has my review piqued your interest or subdued your interest? I'd be interested to know. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this video and it's a format that you would like to see me do again. I had a lot of fun with it, and I think it could be fun to do these sort of author spotlights or ALC spotlights as the year goes on. So let me know what you thought. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.